over a period of like 3 or 4 months, we discussed the budget and so on like that. Things change,
Yeah.
including, okay, what accounts stuff comes out of, okay? There has to be a clearer format we can use than this here.
Okay.
Well, let me finish. The simple reason is because, we look at things and we look at, if I go just regular instruction expenditures. Now, it's fairly simple. We can see the teacher salaries,
Right.
the unemployment, everything else being taken out.
Right.
But then we get down to, items like technology repairs and maintenance, software repair and maintenance,
Right.
okay? Technology, software, what's the delineation between the two of them?
Yep.
And is there something with all these numbers that we have, another line that's probably 15 numbers that goes across?
Yep.
And this is where the confusion comes in, because we have all these things that are put together, and I can go down to regular expenditures, and I can go down to, special education line, and I'm gonna see those descriptions there again. Technology, software, what it is,
Right.
okay? There needs to be an easier format that we can look at and actually compress all this stuff down to something like this.
Is that what the town uses?
Yep. This is what the town uses.
Okay. Here's,
And-
yep, go ahead.
And it will be much easier to kind of keep track of. I think one of the big things, one of the big questions that comes up, we see, a lot of these little blocks of materials and so on like that, miscellaneous accounts. What is that for? Who has control of those accounts? What is that used for? How is that money moved around? Okay, because this is one of the things I have questions on. Who's authorized to use that miscellaneous account, and why is it there? If we've got everything else covered,
Yep.
okay, if someone needs an ink cartridge or whatever, can't that be taken out of the technology stuff? Where is this miscellaneous account money floating around? And at the end of the year, how much is left and where does it go?
Yeah, I can answer all those questions. Here's the first one. And in no particular order, but since you mentioned those lines, technology repair maintenance, software repair maintenance, technology related supplies. The first one, technology repairs maintenance, $3,500. That is what we intend to contract with for a gentleman from Eastwood. That $3,500, that's what that is.
Without me knowing that, without me asking you that, we don't know that as a board, okay? And I think, we need to kind of clarify things up to a little bit easier read.
Okay. And I can answer that as I go along.
Okay.
The line right below it, software repairs and maintenance, that $5,500. You can see that it wasn't budgeted for in 17-18, there's nothing in that line, but for 18-19 there is. That is specifically a software system that will allow us to have electronic grading. And the note right there next to it, but that's what that is. Technology-related supplies, that's typically what you think of when you think of technology-related supplies. You mentioned whether it's ink cartridges for a printer, or could be some storage thing to hold discs in, I don't know, but is typically what you think of when you think of technology-related supplies. Hardware, MLTI devices, that one is listed there specifically. Those are actual devices, and the note is there right next to it.
Okay.
To answer your,
So right there, I want you to stop, because, okay, so under that block of expenditures for regular construction,
yep,
okay, we have all these miscellaneous accounts, not miscellaneous, but named accounts. And then we go down to general supplies,
right,
and then instructional supplies, art, music, PE, and so on like that. So my point here is that doesn't all that come under regular instruction? Why do we have all these little subcategories going here? And
yep,
making us ask all kinds of questions on who's getting what money, who's taking that, what's it used for, specifically what it's used for.
okay, and this is the answer. That long line of coding that you see under account number, second line down, 1000/1100, whatever that long line of code. That's one computer talking to another computer. Specifically, when we upload from the central office, it goes to the state's database, and the state generates this. This is your 279 funding form, 279 as it comes to us. And actually, I just grabbed the stack, so this is the 279 from around the district, so they're all structured the same. But I'll read a couple of categories here on the front. Other per pupil costs: substitute teachers, supplies and equipment, professional development, instructional leadership support, co- and extracurricular students, system administration. My point is, these line codes upload data to the state that they turn around and use to generate subsidy. It is literally one computer talking to another computer. What the town does, this is much more straightforward. I've seen town reports in all of the towns, and it's far greater, and much more simple. For the average person looking at that, I can understand a desire to have a more straightforward format. Unfortunately, one computer talking to another computer at the state, if we want to have maximum subsidy, we break it up like this. And I'll use this as another example. Eastport, their tuition rate was a little over $7,700 when I started. And the Eastport board said to me, what can we do to get that rate up? And I actually did a study on how we report. What categories do we report? It makes a difference, and it did for Eastport, where expenditures were listed, because we got more strategic and improved accuracy in how we report data, making sure the right things were in the right line code, and it increased their tuition rate significantly, and they benefited from extra revenue. So the way that it's formatted, I agree, it is more complex than this. But to pool it together would be incompatible with how the state generates subsidy for you. We really don't have control over that. This software system specifically, the ADS system is the name of it. That's in use by every school district that I've ever seen for that reason. It uploads directly into the state database. It is 100% compatible. And the state uses our own data to generate subsidy.
This is a software system that the state provides to the school or to the AOS?
Oh no, we pay for it. And if you're wondering what it is, it's a $20,000 line in the district budget. But that's what that all goes to. And that is the single biggest expense in the technology portion of the district budget, is that ADS software license. But that's why, and that's what that is.
Well, okay, I have a question on that then. So this is for computers to talk to each other, this thing here.
Right.
And really, we're looking at, I can't even read the numbers on that really. That doesn't help us with accountability. This line item 1, 2, 3, 4, that helps us so that we can match when we're doing the warrants, and we can see what accounts things come out of, or when we're doing the budget, we can see that much easier and clearer. Why can't, you can keep this,
Yep.
and so the computers can talk to each other for the state and all the subsidies and everything, but why can't we generate something like this so that we can provide the transparency and accountability for ourselves? Because this is confusing to the average person, so that we just go, whatever, we're just gonna sign the warrant because we don't see what's going on. This is not user-friendly to the people. It might be user-friendly to the computer, and maybe you need to do it, but why can't we have this too? Or just put the numbers on here.
Okay, and this is what I would say. More specifically, on the warrant, when you look in the warrant, there's a summary page on the front. When you flip down through the pages and you see the individual expenditures, the codes match, but it is more complicated. And to answer your question, there isn't anything that would prevent you from doing this because it's more user-friendly. There is no regulation that would prevent that, as long as we can upload this to the state. But
That would be much clearer for the people that are using the budget. Go ahead, use that for the state, but we would like something clear. So, I would like something clear, though, so that I could read it and see the format.
Okay, so there isn't any regulation that would prevent that from happening. I only have one concern. This is an automated software system, computer generated, okay. In order to convert this to this, a human being is going to have to make some calculations, to combine some lines, to reorganize some things, and you're introducing the potential for human error.
Why would we have to combine the lines? Shouldn't the lines be exactly the same as listed on here? We just have it nice, clear, big print, and numbered 1 through 100 or whatever, instead of,
Well, perhaps I'm misunderstanding that. If you want it the same, like the same categories, all you're asking is just to renumber them?
renumber, make it clear, keep it the same, but wouldn't they only have to enter it in once and then they would have that format already set? Isn't there something that could already be done?
Okay, well, I don't do the data entry, but what I do know is that this functions similarly to an Excel spreadsheet where there are pre-programmed cells that calculate automatically. If we were going to generate this, we would have to either generate the formula specifically or input every single one individually.
How often does that have to be turned into the state? Is that constant?
Quarterly.
Quarterly.
We can go faster if we have a need, but we are required to upload at least quarterly. So to follow up with Mike, he asked about the miscellaneous line. You can see on page 2, it does say miscellaneous. There is a code number for that. And it does indeed have money on there. What money, how is that money used? What does it go for? How is it spent? Who has control of it? Miscellaneous is an acknowledged code number that you can see there. It's basically, the code number that I use is the 1, 2, 3, 4th one over. So you see miscellaneous, that's code 589. This is included within your budget. It is a recognized code line. What would you charge to it? Something that doesn't fit in the other lines. The most recent example I'm familiar with is one of my principals in one of the other towns had his chair finally collapsed. It was held on with duct tape and he got the hand-me-down so somebody else needed a chair, but they didn't have a furniture line. So we coded that to miscellaneous. Give you another example. We sent a group of kids to the Eastport Art Center for a community event and they did something with art. And a kid came home with paint all over his brand new blue jeans. And mom called and said, if you were going to do that, why didn't you tell us ahead of time? I put some old clothes on my son or daughter. And we felt that was a legitimate point. We said, send us a receipt for a new pair of pants. We reimburse that family $50 for a pair of student jeans, take it from miscellaneous. But it is included in your audit. If we charge something to miscellaneous, that code would show up on the warrant, so it is in plain sight. You do have the same level of control as you do the other warrant items. So that was on miscellaneous. That's about miscellaneous there. You do see similar lines under other cost centers. Special education, for example. You see supplies under special education. You see equipment under special education. And on the surface, it may seem like that's redundant. Why can't we combine the supply lines? Why can't we combine the equipment lines? And my answer again is, in the case of special education, you're reimbursed at a higher rate than you would be expenses for regular elementary students. And Lubec benefited from that tremendously this year when the state increased its reimbursement. That is the single biggest reason why Lubec saw an increase in subsidy, is the reimbursed special education at a higher rate. That question has come to me in other towns as well. It seems like some redundancy. Well, special education is billed at a higher rate, and also for state purposes, they also make the calculation between elementary and secondary expenditures. In Lubec, you don't have a high school, so that calculation doesn't come into play because the only expenditure you're making at the secondary level are tuition, special ed costs. However, in towns that have a high school, they have those costs broken out between elementary and secondary, so the default format does have that broken out by grade level and by cost center, and that's why it appears 2 or 3 times in your budget.
Now, on the excuse me, on the miscellaneous, it looks like pre-K or K to 8. Last year it was 1,225,
Yep.
and then this year that you're asking for 2,300.
I'm on page, are you on page 2, Wanda?
Page 2.
Yeah.
Okay, this miscellaneous was reduced from 3425 to 2300, so yes, we are asking for 2300, and that is built on requests that Tina has received from the teachers collectively.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing that for 17, 18 in the budget from the current budget. I'm not seeing where it's 3,400. When I'm looking at the old one, though, I'm not seeing where that's how much it was, Mr. Johnson.
Well,
I'm looking at one that you gave us on 7/27/2018, and those numbers don't reflect your new numbers of 3,400 from last year.
I mean, the way this is set up, you can see one budget year and then the next budget year side by side, 17,
Yeah.
18, and 18, 19. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to look at what you have there.
And Sonia
I
had a
think what she's
question.
interested in is,
Yep.
of the 3,425, how much was expended? If you're only asking for 23 this year.
Okay, well, that's
That's
a
what the
di-
question is.
that's a different report.
I think that's what she's looking for.
I'm looking in the
Right.
wrong place. Okay. 17, 18. We'll look at that.
Because for some reason you didn't ask for as much, and
Right.
it looks like, you know, why would you ask for
Okay.
less unless you didn't spend it?
Okay.
I guess I'm looking at, this is from last year, Mr. Johnson, and the pre-K miscellaneous was for pre-K 2,
Okay.
425,
Yep.
and then grades 3 to 8 on this budget we had was 800.
Yep.
So that doesn't equal 3,400.
Okay.
So if you spend it all,
So
would you overspend?
this 425 was spent entirely for last year, so that's why
That's
that
pre-K,
one, that's why
right.
that's one was
So you gotta add them all together in each area, right?
Yeah.
right. And in this one, there was $800 budgeted, we spent $743.99.
There's a little bit left.
5601.
7% left.
Yeah, GT,
You're on the bottom,
GT
yeah.
is included, so there was 1,000 there, we spent $731.65, so there's $268 left.
So you understand.
Right, that's why we reduced it. Right.
Can I ask you a question? Would there ever be an accounting in each department, like under the miscellaneous, what these teachers or anybody over there bought? I don't want to see every year that you're buying something that if you just rolled it up after you took it off the bulletin board, you could use it again next year.
Yeah.
Instead of ripping it off and throwing it away and we're spending more. You just said gifted and talented spent $1,000 on their miscellaneous for something.
It
There's
was
only-
700, but they budgeted 1,000.
Okay, $700.
Yeah.
How many children are in gifted and talented, and what was the $700 spent on? Because I don't think there's more than 6 or 7 in there. If there's that many, that's over $100 a child. And if you're buying Legos or whatever, don't they save them?
Yes,
Okay, what did they buy? Can you tell me?
not off the top of my head.
That's where, when I sat on the budget committee, that's what I dealt with. Okay, what did you spend this on? We have no idea. And as a taxpayer, I have no idea what you're spending my money on.
Yeah.
Not you personally.
I know what you're saying.
We don't know. And we're all getting budget conscious. I think the school needs to get budget conscious and the teachers need to get budget conscious. We all like to ask for what we want, but we don't always get it.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, I want better accountability.
So would I.
I want better record keeping, I want better accountability, I want transparency on this, so that, you know,
If the board is, I say the board, I feel like I'm in a board meeting. If the group is curious about the process, I can tell you that every single thing that's purchased through your budget here, we use the purchase order methodology, and in some cases, we do have a school credit card, both of which generate an actual bill. Now, so a purchase order Many times those are attached, and it lists specifically, if a teacher orders a box of chalk from Scholastic, it'll say, teacher name, 2 boxes of chalk, and an amount of money. And the purchase order functions, essentially, it is a line of credit where I sign and we get a bill later, and the bill is processed on your warrant. So when you sign the warrant, you'll see the warrant and the bill, but you don't necessarily see the purchase order. But to get to Barbara's point about, what are we spending our money on, and your point about accountability, the accountability is built into the purchase order methodology. The average teacher at the school can't buy anything without it waving under my eyes and going on to the warrant later as a bill. The only exception to the rule is if we work a reimbursement, like if a teacher is going to a conference and they have mileage, they would submit a mileage sheet.
Well, even that has to be approved.
Right, that would be approved in advance because the teacher has to request leave. I'm gonna be out on whatever day to go to this, and I sign those requests for leave. We have building level accounts. The best example is paying officials, basketball officials. It's however many dollars a game plus mileage. That flows through the school checkbook. That doesn't necessarily go onto a warrant, but there is a receipt of that, obviously with canceled check, and the bill from the official. So there is accountability built into the process. Board members typically see it on the warrant, but prior to the warrant, there is a purchase order methodology that many times board members don't see, but it is there.
Now, did they ever get down here at our school, do we have a file where the board members can look in?
We're going to.
Past?
That's something I'll bring up at the next board
I'm
meeting.
just wondering if it
That's
ever
not for this
happened,
meeting,
Mike.
that's for the next board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's gonna happen.
I would like to see the warrants. I'd like to reflect back, I've had a couple times when I've seen warrants, issues and items on there, I thought, I think this was in the last one or something. I'd like to recheck it on the past warrant, and I can't because I have to drive to Eastport.
I've had requests from community members in other towns to view the warrants. And we have a room across the hall from my office, and we pull the warrants out of a closet, we set it on the table, and I've had a self-appointed taxation committee crop up in town that came by and wanted to see the warrant. Happy to do it. I checked in on them every 15 to 20 minutes. If they had a question, I showed what matched with what, so the average person could understand the methodology, but that's readily available. The warrant's in the public domain, so anytime. And yes, we can talk about that. If that's something the board would like to see, we can do that.
One thing, and we brought this up before too, is like if you have X amount of dollars left, let's say from 17, 18,
Yep.
but you're still gonna ask for that same amount. In fact, like with training and development, you've asked for almost double when you only spent 50%
Yep.
last budget. I mean, why do you increase that line item
Yep.
when
and I
you're
can-
not even using it?
Well, I can answer that question. If we look on page 2, under books and periodicals, workbook and textbook, you'll see a significant increase, going from 2,600 to 20,000. The reason for that is the reading program that the teachers want. Along with the reading program is a required professional development to train the teachers in how to implement the new curriculum. So that is why we had to increase that line, Wanda, as well for training, because we have to have a consultant come to train our teachers in how to implement the curriculum. If you're curious, the curriculum is at the school right now on a trial basis because we don't have a budget, so I did not approve the spending. But the vendor said we can release the curriculum to you on a trial basis. After so many days, we either have to buy it or send it back. And I was at the school before I came to this meeting, and they would very much like to keep their reading curriculum. But that's why that line shows an increase. That's the reading
So
curriculum.
is that something the state's requiring, or is it just something the teachers want? Because you said the teachers want.
Yep. The
Which
state,
is it?
the state does not require you to update your curriculum. That's a local decision. The teachers did feel it was time to update the curriculum. It is however many years old it is, but it's quite old.
Yeah.
But again, when questions come to the teachers and to administration about, well, what are you doing to improve test scores? How are you going to, make sure students are meeting the targeted goals listed by the state? you need to have a fairly recent curriculum if you're gonna have a better chance to do that. If you're using a curriculum that's 8, 10 years old, it's a little more difficult. Can it be done? It can be done. But our teachers felt very strongly about a reading curriculum because they thought it was important for the kids.
What methodology will the teachers use to evaluate this program that the town has spent $20,000 on 2 or 3 years down the road, that it's either working or it's not working? And then if, back up before that, how did they select this particular program? And did anybody else in the AOS choose to change their reading program? Because I thought we were all kind of under the same umbrella, we were all doing the same
Okay.
things.
The answer to your question is, when the AOS was formed in 2010, one of the selling points, not only for an AOS, but for an RSU as well, was that, hey, you can have a common curriculum. That was a selling point, however, it's not a requirement. So the answer to your question, part of the answer to your question is, the reading curriculum is not required to be the same in every town, but there are some curricula that are popular that, are adopted by more than one town, but it's not a requirement. The other answer to your question, when you ask how will teachers evaluate whether or not they've been successful, what are they looking at? They're looking at 2 things immediately. One is classroom data that comes to them through homework, tests, quizzes, the typical things you think of when a kid is in school. The other thing that comes to them would be test scores that are mandated by the state and any other type of testing. We do STAR testing as well to inform us locally. In some cases, special education testing, you would draw from that pool of data. And also, a teacher relies on his or her professional judgment and experience. So really those 3 items. You've got hard and fast data, classroom, test, quizzes, whatever. You've got testing, whether it's required by the state, whether it's voluntary, as well as what I refer to loosely as the eye test. When I've got a teacher of some 30+ years, if they tell me something is working or not working, I pay attention to that. So those 3 things combined, Barbara, help a teacher make an evaluation as to what's working and what's not.
If I could ask one other question. I know Mike and Stephanie, as members of the board, had asked earlier, why can't we buy programs or materials and things so that we save money? That's why I asked,
Yep.
Is any other school on this program? Because maybe if you had all the schools on it, it wouldn't have cost us $20,000. If you had all 7 or 8, how many actual towns are in the AOS now?
9.
9. If all 9 went to that program, we wouldn't maybe have had to pay it. That's why I thought, like they said, because I brought my AOS stuff with me,
Yep.
is that, we were all going to collectively do these things, and now we seem to be branching out. We're not saving anything. And I got concerned at the other night at the meeting when you turned around and informed everybody that you couldn't make some of the meetings because a lot of the towns didn't pass their budget. So we're not the only one that's having problems understanding what's being put forth before the school boards. They're having trouble understanding it. The public's having trouble understanding it. And all the towns are saying, no, I'm not buying into this. How much can this keep going
Okay,
on?
so let's be a little more specific. The reasons for school budgets either passing or not passing are not the same in every town. I can tell you right now, in Charlotte, there's strong consideration about closing the school. That's not an issue here or in any other town. Charlotte is in a very difficult position. Their data, their financial data specifically, is significantly different than Lubec and Eastport and any of the other towns. So to say that the other towns are struggling understanding their budget or can't or want expenses to be lowered through cooperation, I've got some towns that want to go their own way and have no intention of cooperating with anybody because they don't feel like they have to, and technically they don't.
Then why in the AOS if they want to go their own way?
Because there were penalties if you didn't join an AOS at that time.
At that time, you said the right word.
Yep.
I have a question, on this $20,000 program. So the teachers say, we want this program, put it in the budget, and we're gonna get this program. Why, and that's an enormous amount of money. Why didn't that request ever come to the board so that we could review what program it was? Not that, I'm gonna disagree with a good reading program, but where was our choice? If we want it, here it is, you're gonna accept it. Why didn't it come to the board to be explained and to be approved and that enormous amount of money?
Well, I think that Tina did speak to the board about the reading curriculum in general, but ultimately, the board votes to adopt the whole document or not.
Yeah.
And getting into a line item, yes or no, really is
$20,000
upside.
is a lot of yes or
Well, it's
no.
34 including the training on it.
Yeah, we should have been informed of this enormous cost. This isn't a couple bucks. And it shouldn't be just woven in here, and if you don't accept if you don't like this, then that's too bad, because you either accept or deny it. And it sort of feels like it's shoved down our throat. And I didn't have a choice in it.
I mean, there wasn't much conversation.
There was nothing
There
about
was
the
nothing about
price.
cost. There was nothing about what the training would cost and so on like that. And $34,000 is a big chunk of change. That's half a school bus,
Yeah.
okay, that we now have to buy. So that was going to be my next question. So we get this large amount of money here that, we were given little bits and pieces on, but we weren't given the fine details. And that's a big chunk of change. And I'm not gonna say, no, the kids don't deserve it, because these are the children of the town, and yes, they should have the best curriculum available, but we should be apprised about how much it's gonna cost, what it entails, who's selling this stuff. Bring the salesman. I'd like to see the salesman,
Okay.
okay? This is the thing, it's a big expenditure, and I'd be the first guy to say, I'm not gonna deny the children in the town the best curriculum we can get them, but we need to have a little heads up on what it's all about, how much it's gonna cost. So we're not surprised, sitting here at the budget table an hour before the meeting, and saying, oh, that's a big expense. Why is it there? What's it all about?
And Mike, is it possible to make a rule that, in the budget, anything over, I'm throw out a number, say $5,000, you want to add additional of something new, must be brought to the board's attention and approved. And that's a lot of money. It isn't just a couple dollars out of the miscellaneous account. So that we are aware, and, we can make decisions as a whole, not just, the school and the teachers. I will defer to their opinion on what something is good or not. But when it's this kind of expense, we have to justify our acceptance of this to the people of Lubec. We have to be accountable to the people of Lubec. And we're just saying there's $20,000 and we don't know much about it. We didn't individually approve it. Can't we make something as a rule that anything over $5,000, new programs and stuff, the board must be apprised and must vote to accept that to be put in there?
That would be for board meeting. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna be bringing that one up.
And I'm not gonna ask this, not one more time, but last year, there was $9,500 left under this training and development. So where does that money go? Is that going into this new one? Does it turn right over and go into the new one?
No, anything that is not spent from any of these lines
Yeah.
goes into the undesignated general fund. So if you're wondering how that money is used, if you just flip back to page 1, money that is unexpended from that line goes into your fund balance forward, which in this version of the budget you have in front of you, we're using $78,854.28.
Why do we do a line item though if we don't go by it, Mr. John? I guess that's a question that I have had on the board. If we do all this to provide a line item, and then at the end of the year, you've got X amount of dollars, and no, we don't know where that money went.
Well, you do know where that money went, because that's the expenditure report right here.
Yeah.
You do know where that money went, and
Which brings me to my question on the 5th edition, which we got last week, compared to the 6th edition.
yeah,
Last week it was $113,854, which was fund balance forward.
yeah,
But today it's $78,854.
right.
Explain to me what that's all about.
Certainly.
What happened? Did you change your mind?
No, if you look right on the front page, you can see a couple of things. Between versions, the two most recent financial changes were we cut money from special education, and we also removed the boiler payment. Those bring down your expenses. So if you're looking at the bottom number, the very bottom number where it says grand total of revenues, you
Yeah.
can see the total size of your budget has decreased.
Yep.
The use of the general fund balance forward has indeed, Sonia, gone from 113.79, and here is the net effect of that. We know from our audit, and I've shared the calculations in previous meetings, that we have approximately $176,000 available for use in the general fund. As the size of the budget has decreased, as it has been cut, we don't have to use as much of the general fund to come in at flat taxation. But I'm glad you asked that question, because this is the type of question that I need a little guidance
Well, I
on.
understand too that we have to always hold money aside in case the budget doesn't pass, and we have to make a lot of salary payments and stuff in the next couple months. I mean, I
Right,
understand
accrued
that,
salary,
right?
yep, yep,
So we're always holding some money
That's
back for
correct.
that, for an emergency.
right.
But I was just wondering if there was a plan, like at some meeting you had said, okay, we're gonna take $50,000 out of the balance forward.
Okay, so
You
this,
know what I mean?
I do.
I'm just
For a
trying to get
contingency,
history on
is
it.
that what you're saying, for like an emergency?
Yeah, well, they still
Contingency
have to
fund?
pay the salaries of
Right.
people. If
Yeah,
the
that-
budget
that's
doesn't
being
pass, they
paid.
still have to
Right.
pay.
Okay.
Yeah, but at
And
some
the light-
point it might run
The lights
out.
and heat and water and everything else is being paid,
okay.
so that's the gift.
Here's the question, and this is what I'm getting at, Sonia. This is a question that I need guidance on. Everybody who has a copy of this, look at page 1, where it says total local revenue at the top. You can see 1,844,712, and all at the far right it says 0. Everybody circle the 0 and draw a line. Yep. Everybody circle the 0 and draw a line down to where it says fund balance forward 78,854.28. I am using 78,854 of your fund balance forward to bring your budget down so there's no increase to taxation. So here's where it gets fun. If this town, or my board, not to get ahead of myself, if my board wants to pass on tax relief to the town, you can use more of your fund balance forward. What I have done is,
We've made it flat.
I've made it
You
flat.
said to make it flat.
That's correct, son. I've made it flat on the assumption that this board and this town would like to keep a little bit in the general fund, the undesignated general fund, for next year and the year after that, and so on. If you want me to use more of your fund balance forward, we know we've got 176 that I can use. I'm only using 78,854 to make it a flat budget. If I increase that to an even 100,000, we can pass on tax savings to the town. That's the type of question I need direction from my board, because what it does is, it limits what's in your general fund balance. I'm trying to stretch your general fund as far as it'll go. So I'm using, in this version, 78,854 for a flat budget, no increase to taxation. If the citizens of this town are calling my board or calling members of the budget committee and saying, I need tax relief, my board can say to me, hey, Mr. Superintendent, let's use more of the general fund balance forward to pass on tax savings to the citizens. Because if I make this number 100,000 instead of 78, I'm passing on $22,000 in savings to the town, which is about 1/8 or 1/9 of a mil. So just to use that as an example, that's the net impact of how those numbers work together. I mean, if this group says, we want tax savings, you don't necessarily have to cut anything, you could, but I also have the option, because of that 176, to increase your revenue stream, which would have the same effect. Just food for thought.
One of the things I wanted to tell the budget committee is that for a long time, the school board had no contingency
Yes.
money set aside. Okay, and we find ourselves in a situation right now that, we're gonna need to buy a school bus, at least one. And then next year, we're looking at replacing a boiler in the building to keep that going. But that's gonna be on next year's budget. So, and if something happens in the meantime, a roof blows up, a boiler blows up and so on like that, we would find ourselves in a hard place and have to come to town for money.
Is the boiler in the cafeteria? Cafeteria,
You can ask me, I'll
Yeah.
tell you exactly what we're replacing.
okay.
We're replacing the steam boiler, or looking at replacing the steam boiler that services the gymnasium building,
Yeah,
the high roof section of the high school, okay? And we will actually be putting the cafeteria section onto that new boiler. It's a hot water boiler. So, and in line replacing some switches and something downstream to accept hot water instead of steam. So it's quite a complicated mess that we have to replace because we're taking 1970s technology and bringing it up to speed to technology that's around today. So, and it's going to be pretty close to $300,000. And that's only one boiler. We have two.
Mike, will that boiler have any effect on the high school wing?
That particular, the new boiler? No.
So how is that wing going to be heated at all at that level? Not your concern.
Pardon me?
It's not a concern?
Is it a concern? It's a concern to the point where right now, there's really nothing other than an open circuit down to the high school. When that boiler comes off and just services the high school, there'll be a way to meter boiler usage a lot better than what's going on now. So,
Would the school
That's on the
board
bill.
and make a recommendation, I don't know who does the negotiations for it, to have, when you go into negotiations with the LCOC for two programs, we lease our high school wing for $1 a year, and yet we end up doing
Okay.
on
right now, we're talking about a budget, we're not talking about LCOC stuff.
I know, but you're talking about money that you need to do that boiler and things like that. So I guess that was my question, but I'll ask that at a meeting, that's okay,
Whether
I
or not
apologize.
that was leased to LCOC for $1 a year or someone for $100 a year, that boiler has to be replaced. We're on borrowed time.
That's okay, I just wanted to make that
And you know
clear.
someone very close to you who knows that.
Yes,
So,
I do.
All right, so we're on page 2, and we're down to, let's see here, the $20,000 books and periodicals, that $20,000, that is being for that reading program. And then, can we continue on from there? I'd like to make sure we discuss the whole thing here. So, I have a question, it's on that page.
Mhm.
It's the art teacher,
Yep.
and the salary is 16,000. The health insurance is, over 6, and it breaks it down, on there, 16,000, and we're reimbursed. That's how much our cost is.
What's on page 2 is your cost. You're no longer being reimbursed for her. We had to restructure her contract.
Okay? But previously, we were reimbursed.
That's correct.
$5,000?
And it was 8,000 or something.
80.
Listed on page 1, 8750, teacher reimbursement Pembroke. You were at 8750. If you're wondering what the 1891.10 is, that would be a portion of her medical, I believe, because somebody has to carry the policy.
Okay, and we get 2 days and they get 3.
Nope.
Each has 2 days.
Yes. And actually, you have 3 because she's GT. I'm going from memory the way her schedule is. Like 2 days art, and then like 3/4 of the day GT, and the other 1 1/4 or 1 1/2 is in Pembroke. You have more. I'd have to look at how her contract is broken down. She has a contract with Lubec and a contract with Pembroke. but you get more GT.
So we have two
services.
separate contracts, and,
Right. One-
okay,
Lubec
and
is-
we're paying a contract part-time employee benefits. We're not sharing her anymore, so she's not a
Right.
full-time person on there, she's two part-time.
She is,
No.
her benefits are prorated based on the number of days, and that's contractual, because she has a teacher's contract. She is a certified GT teacher, so she has one contract with Lubec that says she teaches GT as well as art. And that setup isn't unusual, because I have teachers around the district, somebody does art and social studies, somebody does English and social studies, somebody does math and science, but she has one contract with Lubec for those two things, and her contract is prorated.
Okay, so a person that is here 2.5 days a week
Yeah.
has a contract that includes benefits.
Right, because overall, she contributes a portion of her insurance herself, because she's not a full-time employee, and the rest is prorated between the two towns because she works off the teacher's contract. I'll give another example. If you have a half-time teacher, any subject, half-time teacher, you would put them on the salary scale based on their years of experience, divide by 2 to prorate their salary and benefits.
So because we share an art teacher with another town, we're forced to pay benefits.
You're forced to pay benefits because of what your collective bargaining agreement says.
But we
It
don't,
has
we're
nothing
not
to do
forced to
with
pay
it.
benefits to our music teacher, and he's part-time.
Well, let's take a look. What does it say?
Benefits.
I
Yeah.
think that there's something different about his situation. He might not need it. I can check on that. But there's something different about
But
his
he-
situation.
Okay, so when just an example of, say, a music teacher is part-time, because of their contract, they're allowed benefits?
In the case of the music teacher, his salary was indeed prorated in the manner that I described. So
Yes,
he-
and I understand that, but we aren't obligated to provide benefits to him, but we are to the art teacher?
It depends on whether or not he might not need the insurance. It depends on the individual situation, and I'll have to double check that. But all of your shared people or part-time people were reviewed, because I actually had to negotiate with the union. So those have been reviewed recently, and I can double check that. I'm inclined to believe that he doesn't need it for personal reasons. He has some other arrangement. But
Well-
I can check that.
So because we share, I just want to make sure we're not, overpaid because we are sharing a person, that we're required to pay more than if we had somebody independent, we were just Lubec. But because we share them with another town, we have to pay the benefits.
If you had them individually, you'd have to pay more in salary. Because right now, somebody has to carry the insurance policy, that's true. Because in the way that it's structured with the insurance company, somebody has to hold the policy. So you're reimbursed a portion of the insurance, but everybody's paying their own salary. My sense of the matter is, if you wanted to hire somebody individually and not paying any insurance at all, and only offer them a part-time salary, I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody.
Not art.
Well,
But Lubec pays 3/4 of it, they're paying 3/4 of that benefit. That's 6,600.
probably not 3/4, because the employee is paying some herself. And you're being reimbursed a portion from Pembroke. But what you see there, the 66-1885 Wanda, is Lubec share.
Could you explain to me when, and I'm going to ask Sonia to think back, because she sat on the school board for many years. When did the teacher's contract change that we were giving benefits to part-time teachers?
I don't believe the teacher's contract has changed.
It
in
never,
that regard.
part-time teacher never got insurance. Sonia, do you recall that?
I'm trying to remember, I can remember when we changed it,
I believe you were sitting, I
negotiations.
believe you were
when-
sitting on the board when that happened.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when it was. I remember changing it so when anybody that was grandfathered in kept their family plans, but any new people hired
was on
would
there
have
with
to
you.
only get single. If they wanted family, they had to pay for it. I remember that.
So
And it was one of the last times I did negotiations. It wasn't that long ago. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, the last time we
But I'm
negotiated.
trying to think about the part-time thing.
Right. I was gonna say, the last time we negotiated, when I was your superintendent, we did not address insurance with the teachers. We left it the way that, we left it the way that it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It hasn't been an awful long time though, but I can't remember,
I think it was the last year you were on board.
I can't remember. Let me see.
So while you're in that section, I have a question. The gym teacher, and this may be reflecting the new gym teacher, but on the third version of the draft, of the budget, the gym teacher's salary is 30,600.
Yep.
And now it's 44. Is that because there was a new gym teacher put in place?
Yes, the
there?
$30,000 figure, we actually at that time offered it to another gentleman who was younger and just starting out his career, so his salary on our scale would have been much less. Mr. Ashby is a veteran, and on our scale, he commands more money.
So is that a family plan on him right there, 20,993?
I believe so.
And I have a question
And
then,
I have a question about that, but go ahead.
oh, okay, under our contract, if they have, if an employee is, here in getting the insurance, and the employee's spouse is also eligible to be insured by their own work, do we sit there and, is there anything that says that spouse has eligible coverage under their own work? Other companies I know say if the spouse has eligible coverage, they're not covered under
Okay.
this.
This question has come up in another town also, because there was the opportunity for an employee to be on the insurance coverage as her spouse. This is in another town. And we actually had to research the matter. We have to follow the terms of the collective bargaining agreement. So if your collective bargaining agreement provides an insurance benefit to an employee, you can't deny them that benefit just because they're eligible on a spouse's plan.
No, not the employee, their spouse. Why does their spouse, if their spouse themselves are
Oh, I see.
eligible and they have a really good job and they have wonderful coverage,
Yeah.
shouldn't they, other companies say the spouse has to get the coverage from their own employer.
Okay.
We don't have to cover that, or maybe, just to double cover it.
Yeah, so
I know there's cases where they have wonderful coverage, very, very cheap.
And the other part of the insurance provision, it does say in your CBA that an employee is entitled to single subscription insurance and a percentage, and I think it's 70%, going from memory, 70% of any other plan of the difference they'd be eligible for. And that is why you see the 19,295 and the 2993. It depends on what plan they've got and the percentage that they're eligible for.
All that can be changed in negotiations.
Yeah, because I know that there's, in the past, in
So
the
is that
present,
changed? As far as being single, the teachers coming on new teachers was only supposed to get single. Did that change at some point?
We did not change it this last time. We were going off existing language. We did not negotiate over insurance with the teachers this past time. But your current language does say single subscription plus a percentage, and the percentage varies based on who was grandfathered and who wasn't. But the current language would say 70% of the difference of any other plan that the employee is eligible for.
Okay, so we had the special ed teacher who got family plan. The gym teacher's got family plan. Terry Murphy's been there a long time, 30 years.
Can I say one thing to Denise real quick? Not being a smarty pants, but the state of Maine enacted where all teachers have to start at 30,000 Denise. All the
They sure
teachers.
deserve it.
Yes, they
They-
do,
they-
but that's a
If
law.
it's
That's
over
a
our
law.
staff, then the
Yes.
state has a difference.
Not anymore.
Not anymore,
They
they
don't.
changed that?
They used to, but
They used
they
to for
don't
the first
compensate.
couple of years and then they canned it.
Just for fun to back that up, there was a proposal put to the legislature to increase the minimum to 40. That did not survive the legislature. There are some towns, and a lot of towns, maybe that couldn't afford that.
Wow.
Any more questions on page?
Okay, the tuition to other main public schools, it's fairly straightforward. We've had a reduction in 9 pupils, is that right? Or 8 pupils from high school?
Actually, if you're looking on page 2, if you add up the current enrolled, we're at 37. And if you go all the way to the right, you're looking at 40. So you've seen an increase of 3 secondary students, and that is contributing to the increase in the overall size of the budget. That represents $30,000 by itself under regular instruction.
How much did you say?
Those 10 students,
30,000,
more specifically
33,000.
on tuition, 35,561.50, that figure.
35,
And that's included under regular instruction.
right in front of me, I'm trying to tell you.
Well, that's okay.
I thought last year we graduated one of the largest classes that we ever had here at the elementary. Do you know how many kids graduated from WA and Machias last year, and how many went in from our school this year?
Well, according to the page, Washington Academy, you had two that left and 8 that entered. And in Machias, you had 4 that left and 1 that entered.
So 9 kids went from 8th grade on, that didn't stay in town.
And you said you had 37 high school students plus 3. What does the plus 3 reflect?
There'd be an increase in the number of kids going. You have 3 more going right now in 18-19 than who went in 17-18. On page 2, Barbara, at the bottom, currently enrolled. And by the way, with student movement, just so everybody knows, if we think we're gonna have 40 kids for 18-19, which we do, if a kid changes residency midway through the year, WA and Machias stop billing us for that kid, and it would go to the next, the bill will go to the next town wherever they reside. So it's possible in September to say we're gonna be tuitioning out 40 kids. If somebody moves out of Lubec, then you're only tuitioning out 39. And the converse is also true. If somebody moves to town,
So
we
they
have to pick
prorate
up the
that
tab.
by the month, even by
That's
the week.
correct.
By the day.
Yes,
By the
it
day,
is by
right.
the day.
Because we did have students who were going into high school
Yep.
that the parent has moved out of Lubec,
Mhm.
but when they signed up for whatever school, they were in Lubec, so we could
Yep.
see we have 4 kids.
That number's been reduced once because you had somebody move out of state, actually. You had a couple of high school students. So that number has been reduced once. However, if you have knowledge of a family.
Oh, don't worry, I keep my eye on it.
Well, I mentioned that because I have people in other towns do the same thing. They call up my office and say, Helen, this person is no longer a resident. And-
Just moved over the line.
Right.
Do something.
And they don't think to tell because they don't realize that the
Right.
town never does it.
I chuckle about it sometimes, but in fairness to a parent, they don't always think to notify
No.
the school department. They're doing whatever they have to do to move, and, yeah. But that question does come to me a lot, actually.
Gifted and talented, page 3.
So, you know, I didn't catch all that with what you guys were talking about that. But in 17-18, they changed it to 8,000. But at that time, they said that Lubec got a $5,000 reimbursement. So now they don't get anything?
No. Just a reimbursement on insurance, and that's because we separated the contract. Prior to this year we're sitting here, that employee had won a contract, and that was problematic for a couple of reasons. But now they have 2 separate contracts, so there won't be any reimbursement for salary because each town pays their own. But we are getting that $1,800 reimbursement for a portion of the insurance.
And the gifted and talented is going down.
A little bit,
Why is that?
Decrease in salary.
right, for the reason that I just mentioned.
Who teaches gifted and talented?
You're a teacher.
Connie
You're a
had
teacher.
Art teacher.
Yeah.
Connie.
Could you give me an example of what miscellaneous items she might buy? Because we're asking for 1,000 last year, and we're asking for 1,000 this year. And I'd like to know how many students are in gifted and talented.
I don't know the number, but it is less than the number that you quoted, because gifted and talented actually has a suggested percentage. I'm going from memory, but it's something like 3 or 4% of your population, and if you have 70 kids for easy math, 4% becomes 2.8 children. So it is very few students. The other thing that you see here under miscellaneous, since you asked, the GT teacher is required to take some professional development. There is a statewide GT conference that she goes to. I believe it's in Rockland. And if you look at the lines here, you don't see anything for travel or for conference registration or things of that nature. So if you're wondering what might the GT teacher use under miscellaneous, that's what it would be. It would be to go to the state conference of GT teachers. I believe it's is it at the Samoset? But that's something she goes to, and it's an expectation of GT teachers.
Is that mandatory, gifted and talented?
The program is mandatory.
Still, yeah.
Okay.
It's rough.
This probably really isn't a pleasure workshop question, but I understand that gifted and talented students also have to have something similar to an IEP updated every year. Is that correct?
I don't know for sure, so I better not say.
So it's not special education type IEP, but it's a very similar, let's say, progress sheet.
Yeah, there are some similarities. There is an identification process
Right.
that is pretty stringent. It involves testing, so it shares those similarities with special education. But as far as individual student progress toward meeting goals, I don't want to speculate.
It's a year-to-year thing. They have to be recertified in that.
They do have to be re-identified every year, that's true, I do know that. But as far as the individual student tracking progress, I just don't know.
And we have to have 3% of our population be found to have gifted and talented. Even if we don't have any, we have to just sort of make it up. Oh, you're really good in art.
I mean, like,
Let's put you in the program.
In some smaller schools, if we're fortunate enough to have the service, because I've got one school that can't find somebody and they get a GT waiver from the state, but if you have a GT teacher there and you have room, we've been able to offer enrichment to some kids, and I think that's the right thing to do. You got somebody there, you got a service, but you are correct on the percentage of identified students.
Does gifted and talented mean that somewhere these children have been identified to either excel in math or science or
Yes,
something,
English, art, music.
whatever? And they have to take a test to get into this program?
Yes.
I think their identification is based on their marks.
Grades?
I have a child that's in the gifted and talented program, so yeah, grades
So-
that they get in school.
Are all students approached?
I don't know how the criteria is logged out, but like I said, I believe there's something similar than like an IEP that has to be filled out and has to be registered with the state every year on every student that's in there.
I guess Mike was Wanda asking, just because you're in it this year, does it mean you're automatically in it every year after? So if I understood, like an IEP has to be updated, you could change and they may say, well, you're not eligible for the gifted and talented. Somebody else either scored higher or is doing better or whatever, so you're in and out, they're in and out.
Maybe.
That could be, yes?
I honestly don't know. I have not heard of a case where a student has been transitioned out of GT, but I have been involved in some conversations where a parent thought their child should be eligible,
Oh,
and
well,
it's
that's
of some controversy.
good.
I know that the plan has to be recertified every year for not just the children, but that it has to be certified to the state about what the teacher, how they plan to, what things they're gonna be doing, the progress on there. And from what I was researching, you have to recertify and send that.
Yep. This question has come to me in another town. There is an actual GT plan that the teacher has to submit, saying, this is what my plan for the year is going to be, these are going to be my activities, and so on. And the certification is basically my signature on the plan, because I had another parent ask me that question, and That was the answer that the state of Maine provided.
And how many other towns are using this same gifted and talented person? Two.
You, Lubec and Pembroke.
And are we supplying all professional development for this person, or is the other town supplying $1,000 worth of professional development also?
I don't know
Or
what
are we just supplying it and they get to use?
You're sharing it for the upcoming year. I don't know off the top of my head if Pembroke's budget has specifically $1,000, but you are sharing it between the two schools.
So they'll pay for part of that $2,900 that we have to pay for her to go to professional development?
Well, it's not $2,900. Under gifted and talented, the miscellaneous line is $1,000, and I believe it was, would we charge to it, what did we say, Sonia, 700 last time? Or was that, sounds that another one? But yes, they'll be divided up, that conference, it's an annual thing.
Well, you think if that program, you know, that's,
Yeah.
you think that more children would have an opportunity if they have this program to enter into it. I mean, we're paying that amount
If
for
it's
two
offered to
children.
everybody.
Yeah.
Maybe a teacher has to recommend a child if they think they're special.
I think that is part of the process, there's a teacher
They
recommendation.
can apply for it and sign up for it on the bulletin board, and then a teacher has to recognize something and give them, parents have to give them.
Well, my question about gifted and talented is actually, what do they do?
Bingo.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've seen the out and about thing, and I'm going, okay, that's enrichment for gifted and talented? It's like, okay.
My sense of the matter is, and I am not an expert on the nuances of gifted and talented. However, every student in their area, my understanding is that they are given the attention and accelerated at a faster rate than a non-identified student. The instructor is free to customize lessons, whether it's experiential learning, which I'm aware of in some cases in other districts. Long-term projects, they use different instructional methodologies in high-achieving students. There are actually a few cases around the state where autistic children qualify as GT in one particular area, and then they really have a customized program. I've seen that in some other districts, so I can't give you specifics as to what is day-to-day going on in the classroom. I can tell you that the classroom teacher has a wide latitude to customize learning for students because you're dealing with high achievers in smaller numbers.
Right, yeah, and I understand. Who provides the oversight of this?
Day to day in the building, it would be the principal, the same as for any other teacher.
Okay, I've just seen some.
I know we're making budget recommendations, but the GT program is required by the state.
Yes, it is.
Maybe the school board could request that when we have open house and everybody goes down to see the beautiful artwork or what the kids in first grade or preschool doing, there's a specific section for gifted and talented so you can see what they're working on or have been working on, whether it's math or art. It should excel much more than the average child or the regular children that are in that school. But it should be identified as gifted and talented. Because I guess they're being pulled out of class to do that now, or is it after school?
It's actually built into her schedule. GT is a certain time of the day.
Okay, special education, I'm gonna go right down to the student transportation salary. Now, we've identified that we now have someone driving,
A drive.
a driver, that's provided by Cal State Treatment as their employee,
Right?
and how are we reimbursing them for that?
They will bill us.
They will bill us at what rate?
That I don't know. I don't have that information from them yet. I'm trying.
Okay, because I'm looking at $40,000
Mhm.
plus another $6,000,
Yep.
and possibly even another $10,000 on top of that.
So what you see there, the 40,000 would indeed be the salary, and the 6,000, which would be fuel, So you got salary and fuel. And where's the 10 that you, what line is the 10, Mike?
The possible 10
Okay.
that we might have to provide a vehicle, so it will be wear and tear on a vehicle and possibly fuel mileage on another vehicle, so. So right there, the $40,000. So we're gonna leave that in the budget here and not know what Cal State Treatment's gonna bill us for. I mean, they could be billing us for $19,000. Just throwing that figure out as an
John,
average.
we don't get reimbursed from the state for that?
Are we talking, main care reimbursement?
Yeah, anything from
Okay.
the special ed.
You do get general special education reimbursement at a higher rate that's built into your subsidy. However, the question of main care reimbursement has come up in some other towns because there are some services that conceivably you could get reimbursed for if the family qualified for main care. However, I was greatly disappointed where at the start of last year, we were notified by our former provider, I say former, Lubec Mental Health, AMHC, that they had lost the capacity to bill for main care reimbursement. They lost their capacity when they lost the employee that did that. There is a required training in order to bill the insurance industry for such things. Some services are eligible, some are not. I was asked by other towns to look into the matter, is there anybody else available? I am going to be taking the matter to the superintendent's meeting next week, and I'm going to be asking my colleagues around the county, do they do it to begin with, A, because the district that I left to come to you didn't bill for main care reimbursement, and if they are billing for it, how are they doing it and can we share? Because the special education needs around the district are high, very high in some cases. And even, the billing and the paperwork, it is a major challenge. It's a difficult job. I've been told anecdotally that years ago, we used to do it in-house. The district used to do it in-house. We no longer do that in-house. The person who did that retired years before I came on. And yes, in fact, there is a main care audit every 5 years.
Is callus day treatment considered out of district? Can you back?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure, but I think there's a reimbursement from the state on any child that has to be transported out of the district for special education services. And I don't know exactly how that works, but I will get you the information on that. Whether or not we're eligible for it or not, I don't know, but if it's out of district, I think we should probably look into it.
Right.
So we don't know where that $40,000, it's kind of in limbo land right now, because what would happen if they turn around and say, well, starting next week, we can't provide transportation to the children?
I had to find out what would happen if we couldn't live up to our obligations, because the person who was providing our transportation took another job. So a couple things I would say. That line of $40,000, right now I'm anticipating we're going to use that to pay the bill from callus day treatment. If for some reason the person who is providing for callus day treatment can't do it, we can use that money to try and pay somebody to drive for us, and they would contract with us specifically. That was originally what we had in mind when we put this in your budget, that the person who's providing transportation would be our employee, and we would pay them off that line. The nuclear option, what happens if callus day treatment says we can't provide transportation and we can't find somebody? The answer is, we'd have to convene an IEP, look the parent in the eye and say, we just plain can't do it, and offer some other type of service, whether it's tutorial or after hours or something. But we have made a good faith effort to try and find somebody. If we can't, we can't, but those are the three options. Callus is willing to provide for us right now, which is good. If it falls through, we'll try and find somebody who will contract directly with us. If that doesn't work, it's literally look a parent in the eye and say, we can't do it.
Is there a conflict if a parent wanted to do it? Was hired to transport the the students.
No, that's not a conflict. It's happened in other towns in the district. We've paid a parent hours plus mileage to transport their own child in their own vehicle, and we've had to do that.
So I noticed the day three tuition line is $30,000 more. Is
Yep.
there more than one student, one or two students? Did that come up?
And just what is the summer services ESY? I'm not familiar with that.
ESY is extended school year. So in that option I just outlined, if something happened and transportation fell through, we would have to offer extended school year, whether it's after school hours on site or tutorial in the home or something, and we would have to pay for it off that line. But ESY is extended school year.
Mr. Johnson, I thought I saw in the Quaddy Tides a couple weeks ago where AOS 77 in Lubec was looking for someone to transport.
You actually saw that on Facebook also.
I just remember reading it there, Mike. I try to catch it everywhere, but, if Wanda just said, would you pay a parent? If the parent came forward, because once before, we had somebody up in Calais, and they charged us from the time they left Calais to come down and pick the kid up,
Right.
bring him back, and bring him
Right.
back. That's 4 trips we were paying for in a day. So have the parents been approached that perhaps they could be paid if they want to drive their child themselves?
They have been approached.
Just wanted to ask.
Anyone else have questions on that line, on that particular area?
Especially,
I do have a question. You have your dues and fees. It says main care billing. Well, if you have nobody to main care bill, how do you, oh, you took the $4,000 out. Thank you.
Okay.
I just went down that one.
now, on the tuition reimbursement, what is done? And is that's contractual?
Tuition reimbursement. I'm trying to find it.
It's way up.
Way up, it's about-
Under the teacher salary,
$1,900.
Okay. yeah.
$4,000
Yep.
tuition reimbursement. Is that something that's offered to all teachers, that they can have $4,000 worth of tuition?
The amount of money is the maximum allowed under the contract, which would be 2 classes per year, and that's part of the CBA.
Okay.
So if this person chooses to avail themselves of that opportunity, it's contractual, we have to give it to them. If they don't avail themselves of that opportunity by personal choice, we just simply wouldn't expend it, and it would pull through in your carrier.
Okay, the question was, that I have is, when a teacher is on a conditional certificate, meaning they haven't completed everything, they have to do, say in special ed, you have to do 3 online classes, and you hire that person and they do their classes, are we paying for them, or does the tuition reimbursement start after they have become a certified teacher, or are we paying people to become a certified teacher?
Okay, so the answer is, as soon as an employee signs the contract, they come under the terms of that contract. So the answer to your question is, and this is no longer the case, but we would have been paying for that employee to become certified. That's the answer. Because once they sign their contract, they're part of the collective bargaining unit, and the contract applies to everybody.
Okay, all right, so Lubec, under our contract, we pay people to become teachers without them being teachers. We employ them as teachers, and then we pay for them to go to school to get their certificate. Is that what the contract says? So
No,
somebody can...
the contract doesn't use that language specifically.
Yeah.
The hypothetical scenario you're describing is
Uh-huh.
within the realm of possibility, and it's happened all over the state because of the teacher shortage.
Yeah, and I understand that.
You
It's,
keep going to school and turn out with a master's degree and the salary keeps coming up.
oh yeah,
You have no control over that.
but if somebody is not a teacher and has not ever even...
Stipulation that they will become.
No.
I've seen contractual wording, that say, if we expend X number of dollars, you have to work for us for so many years. I've seen language to that effect that gets negotiated into contracts. A lot of times you'll see that for administrative stuff, because If you have a veteran teacher who wants to get into administration, needs to do the certification work, I've seen wording that says, if we pay for your administrative certification, you have to work for us for 3 to 5 years, whatever the case may be. Your scenario with the teacher, however, that has come into play quite often, because there are districts that will say, we want to hire you, we'll help you become certified because we have a need. So I've seen that.
And do we have a clause saying that, you know, we're paying for you, you have to stay here and service us, or we're paying, okay, and as soon as they get their degree, see you later, Lubec just paid for my college.
We do not have a clause.
We don't have any
in
protection
that.
for ourselves in that way.
No, that's not in the contract.
Mr. Johnson, isn't the school board required to tell the town and the students that they are trying to provide the best education that the town can afford?
Okay, so,
Is that a correct statement?
okay, so not in so many words. However,
We're gonna wordsmith this.
well,
Cook it.
I mean, yeah, I know what you're getting at. As a board, there is an obligation for the board, through their fiscal responsibilities, to provide equitable opportunity. Not equal, equitable. And if you really want a wordsmith, there's a difference. I'll spare you that one. I had to take a training, I thought I was gonna die. Equitable opportunity. The board provides equitable opportunity. The most common methodology is when they approve their budget, because you are approving the resources to pay a teacher to buy curriculum, to train professional development. The second way you provide that equitable opportunity is through hiring teachers. So yes, the board has an obligation. Do they say that specifically in a statement, in a letter? No, but they satisfy the obligation through their financial responsibilities. You pass the budget, and also by hiring teachers. So you are providing equitable opportunity.
Okay, at the last school board budget meeting, at the last school board meeting, you stated that you were able to cut the budget because the principal took out some of the money from
Right.
the courses that the teachers were going to be taking.
Right?
Just because the contract says that they can take up to 2,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask this question, and if I can't, I'd like the board members to see this contract, to read it, because I don't understand how you can mandate that everybody in this town has to pay for 2 classes for every teacher at whatever level they want, no matter what it costs us. Previously, it had been 1 class, and we also saw when we looked at the budget, in the budget process, that a lot of that money wasn't spent, and yet they were still asking for the same amount. And Stephanie just brought up, oh, we got $4,000 here. If all of it wasn't spent, why are we asking for the same amount? So Ms. Wormel has cut that.
Yep.
So therefore, she's gone against what the contract says. If it says you have to have 2. So
Okay.
is it up to 2 or is it 2?
She
Okay,
didn't
so
cut
here-
it, she
okay,
increased it
so-
from 8,000 to 20,000.
So here's the
Not the
thing.
teacher
tuition.
Here's the answer to your question. It is, truthfully, reducing those lines is somewhat risky because of the contractual provisions. That's true. What would happen if a teacher said, I want to prevail myself with my contractual benefit, take 2 classes, but there's only enough money on the line for 1 class? What would happen? We would have to pay for that because it's contractual, and we would have to take it from one of these other lines, like miscellaneous. Or, what is preferred practice, and this is preferred by the state, you charge an expense to a line that matches. And if you overdraw the line, you need to leave money on some of the other lines to offset it. So the best practice in that scenario would be, we have to allow the teacher to take the 2 classes because it's contractual. You would overdraw the course reimbursement line and make sure that we had some other lines where there was some meat left on the bones so we didn't overspend the total budget. Now, theoretically, I could assign course reimbursement to miscellaneous, but the state frowns on that because when I upload the data, the expenditures are in the wrong category. So it's better, believe it or not, to overspend 1 line and leave money on another line. The same would be true if the transmission dropped out of a bus, the shingles blew off a roof, vandalism and the windows were broken out. I would have to overspend facilities maintenance or overspend transportation and pull enough through on the other lines to offset it, but preferred practice is to charge expenses to the lines where they belong or the lines that make sense.
Okay, that's a perfect example of what we need to get a handle on.
Okay.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
We had an issue with banners last year.
Yeah.
And Booster Club was supposed to have been raising money for these sports banners and so on like that.
Mhm.
It wasn't money to buy these. And all of a sudden, someone pulled a rabbit out of their hat and we had banners. Where'd that money come from? We were never notified in school, but I've never seen anything on the warrants on it.
Yeah. And what happened is exactly what I described. When I'm sitting in that board meeting, and there was an overwhelming desire, the students had earned this recognition, we deserve a banner. Essentially, the expenses were charged to a line where there was money, so the kids could have that banner.
Okay.
That's what happened.
My understanding that if we're moving money from one account to another, okay, and it's above a certain percentage,
Yeah.
and I believe that's 10%,
Yeah.
it has to have board approval.
Yeah. And I'll elaborate more. You didn't move money line to line. The money didn't move, which is why the board didn't have to act. You didn't move money. The expenses were charged specifically. So you didn't move money, we just directed the expenses to a different line. What you're talking about,
But we didn't direct any expenses anyway.
Right.
Someone down on South Street did. Okay, my question is, how often does this happen?
rarely,
Who has the authority to do it? And why doesn't it show up somewhere in the warrant that we can have clarity on that, where this stuff goes, or where this money goes to and gets spent?
and that did show up on the warrant because of the coding, because it came, the banners specifically, the banners, came out of your budget, and it had to be coded with these numbers, so it did show up on the warrant.
Coded
And
under what though?
it would, and that's probably why that you didn't notice it immediately, because it wouldn't have come under athletics. I'd have to actually go get it.
So somebody without notifying the board can buy banners out of the kindergarten's book fund. That we set aside money for a fund, and because they didn't really use a lot of it, so we're just gonna buy banners with it, but we're not gonna tell the board. And I'm just gonna take this unilateral, decision upon myself and do it.
Well, I believe that the board was informed that the banners would be purchased because the kids deserved it.
Well, the board was notified that it was gonna occur, but the
But,
board
yeah.
never found out where it comes from.
That's the big question,
Yeah.
okay? What was moved from what to what, or what was taken from what? Was there a portion taken out of one line, another portion taken? I mean, this is the thing that,
Yep.
you know, people get a little concerned with, and banners was really a hot issue for a number of reasons. I mean, there were multiple entities involved in it, and there was a lot of, you know, emotion, you know, about what was going on and what wasn't going on. And, I mean, it's just one example. I understand that sometimes, yeah, okay, things have to get moved around, okay? But let us know, okay? Let us know where this stuff is going, let us know where this stuff is coming. I mean, it could have very easily probably gone on the principal's account, could have gone on the principal's credit card for all I know. Okay, it wasn't, we're not talking thousands and thousands of dollars, but
And
just to be clear.
and when the state is going by all these codes and they're saying, okay, this is allowed, this is allowed, are they aware that we're buying banners and possibly from the, you know, the book fund?
Yes,
There,
they are,
okay.
because it's quite a common scenario.
And-
Because the reason it's a common scenario is because it is impossible for any school department to anticipate every single need. It can't be done.
Yep.
The other thing I would say is, as far as authorization goes, when the board votes to adopt a budget, you're voting on the whole budget, the total amount. The last warrant article that the citizens vote on at the budget referendum sets the spending limit, but it also authorizes the school department to expend that amount of money. So when the voters vote on the last warrant article, they are giving authorization to spend up to that amount.
Okay, but we're getting authorization to spend within the departments, not, here's $2 million and you get to move it however you want, whenever you want.
Again, the money did not
Mhm.
move.
No, I understand the
You can-
technical thing you're
you-
talking
You can
about.
assign expenses, and that's a common thing. More specifically, Mike's point, you can move, actually, it is 10% between cost centers. Special education is a cost center, transportation is a cost center. Other expenditures, lunch program is a cost center, because I've had to do this in some other towns.
I think at one point we had to do it this past year on something, I can't remember exactly what it was.
Right, you had to move, and the board has to authorize 5% from one cost center to another. But as long as you don't exceed a cost center, the board doesn't have to be involved in several $100s, $500-600 for a couple of banners, didn't exceed anything.
At what point
But I think,
doesn't?
I think I heard Mike say the board would like to know about it, and they couldn't find it.
Well, that's an agenda item for a board.
That's what I was trying to
That's,
get
that's
at.
something we can make a rule on. It provides much more accountability, transparency.
Where are we here? We're-
Extracurricular.
Okay,
Inform.
so on extracurricular, you see there are stipends there.
Yep.
So I'm looking at extracurricular stipends, and it's $12,000, an additional $1,700 over last year. So these are all the coaching stipends, is that correct?
Yes.
Or all the stipends? Because I know we have some stipends with chess club or golf or something
No,
like that.
That would be all the stipend, where it says extra and co-curricular. So
Okay.
extracurricular would be your coaching stipends, co-curricular if you have an outing club, chess club. but
Right,
that's
okay,
it.
so that's all the stipend things, if we have a chess club and something like that.
Yep.
So the things we now have, we have, coaches, whatever it might be, volleyball, softball, soccer, whatever it is, okay, and then outing club. So, not all of that gets expended, right, correct? There might be, 5 categories that have stipends that don't get spent because we don't have a golf club. Can that be moved around if, let's say, someone wants to start a chess club? Can that be moved around, okay, with board direction?
Yes, and I've actually done that in another town with the same thing that you're talking about. If you're curious, stipends are calculated as a percentage of the base.
Right.
So when you renegotiate a contract, if the base increases, you see an increase in the stipend. If we've had a golf team historically, but don't or haven't in the last 3 or 4 years, the board can reassign that money. I would say I would just get some statement from the union to that effect, because your stipends many times are listed specifically in the contract, but it can be done, and that's a common sense thing. If you have a group of kids that want to have a club and they can get an advisor, but there's no money to pay the advisor, can you take money from an unused extracurricular thing? Probably. We would just get a one-liner from the union saying they were fine with that, and the board would vote, and that would probably be all that it would take.
And since it's all lumped into one, we don't know what is being paid for soccer or that.
I think that on one of
Is there?
the sheets, we did have a breakdown of it. I don't know,
Is there?
earlier last year.
Is there a breakdown so that we know that if there is a defunct club that is continuously being funded,
If it's
so that we know that, and robotics is a huge thing right
Right.
now.
right.
And it would be wonderful if we have something sitting around for golf or chess or something that's never used. I would like to know that so that we could really encourage something that is modern and kids will get into.
If a list of extracurriculars isn't in the CBA, I can't remember if it is or not. My office has a list because we have to maintain a list in order to pay coaches. So if it's not right handy in the CBA, we've got it. I'll make a note here.
Yeah, there used to be my.
There
we
was
had-
at one time, I'm not sure if it was this year or last year that.
Yeah, I thought I saw them somewhere, but so,
Mr. Johnson and the school board members, if 2 kids come up and they say they want to have a chess club or whatever, previous boards had agreed that if a club needed to be started, they wanted to have the minimum of 5 students that were interested in it, because you're going to have to pay a stipend, and they didn't want them to start it up and then, oh, well, he doesn't want to play, and now you've got one kid left in it.
Right.
And I think the school board should, and you should look at that before we start
That's a
them.
board decision.
I understand that, Mike, that's why I'm saying it.
So extracurricular activity, officials, we have $1,000 marked off for officials, and that's usually basketball, maybe soccer, soccer official.
Most commonly basketball. It's a long season in the wintertime.
It's my understanding that the door paid the basketball.
They paid the referees, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Referees.
Because that's not enough.
Okay, so we keep this in here, kind of like to fall back on if the door isn't enough, so.
No, I can see how much that we actually spent.
Is there an accounting of the fund of the proceeds that they take in at the door? Is there accountability for that?
Yes,
Where could I find
There
that?
is?
athletic director.
Okay.
Athletic director gave receipts.
So Sean would have
And-
known last year.
He should have.
Is there a report given to the board during budget time of how much is in that athletic fund? I mean, there's a whole bunch of little funds going around, and I don't want to get bit in the butt again about something like the boosters where we had no idea.
We've taken care of the boosters. The
Yeah.
other thing I would say is, in the audit, there is an entire page with the building level accounts listed. One of them actually says athletics, but that is not referring to the boosters account. So it is in your audit, athletics, the jean fund, teachers kick in like $2 to wear their jeans on Fridays or something. All those building level accounts are listed in the back of your audit.
Who has authorization to use those? Does it, the accounting out of those funds, where is the accountability to the board of this money was taken out of this fund for this
Well,
purpose?
the accountability is in your audit. Day-to-day operations, the building level accounts, you have multiple signatories, which are the secretary and the principal in most cases.
Do those show up in the warrant?
They don't.
Money coming out of those funds,
They do not show up in the warrant, and the reason for it is because that money comes from a separate account. The warrant is based on your budget, based on this.
why aren't we getting information about that?
You can be. I've got a Perry, for example, their principal, or their former principal, used to read off the balance in the checkbook and whatever, right on down the line.
I think it might be a good idea that we have monthly copies of the statement that we can actually put in that file cabinet that's going to suddenly appear next week, along with the warrants. I don't see that being a big deal.
Yeah, just transparency of what money's in the account, or when the money's being moved, or just provide better oversight.
The money can't be moved without going through the bank. So every time there's a withdrawal or a deposit in those accounts, with those signatories, you've got a receipt.
Right. I think that'll eliminate a lot of the angst that happened a few months back
Right. Yep.
with oversight of accounts and so on like that.
Because those, yeah, those
There's a
are.
way we can actually put our hands on, with the warrants for that particular month, that particular copy of the balance sheet.
I don't want them to be vulnerable to,
Right.
hey, nobody's looking, and,
They're not.
if they were,
Multiple signatories, deposit slips from the bank.
yeah, that means nothing. The board set of eyes is a good thing for accountability.
Okay.
On the, we're coming up on the nurse, and today, I just want to say it, I called Augusta, and they have a consultant nurse. And I would imagine we'd have access to her should something occur.
I've had to call that person before.
Yeah, but I mean, if we don't have anybody in place right now, even,
That's why I was a few minutes late. I was
Yeah.
speaking with that
yeah.
grandparent this afternoon
Yeah.
before I came to this meeting.
But, the school, I'm sure Tina must have that number and
Yes.
that person.
Yeah, we did use that person last year, I believe, for
Yep.
something here we got to. So we're still budgeting 4,500. There's something about a grant that the medical center had?
Yes.
Any word on that?
No more recent word since the last board meeting where I reported that they were waiting on final word. Marilyn told me that they do in fact have names in mind who could perform that service. This cost center was created with the idea of continuing your contractual relationship with the previous nurse, but we did not issue that person a contract. She's indicated to me that if something falls through, she could pick us up quickly. Because our kids we need to have immunization and screening and whatever, and a new need has now emerged as well.
$4,500, and how many days was she on campus last year?
I don't know the exact number, but with that other issue that you're aware of toward the end of the year, it was more than a few.
Do we have any kind of sign-in sheet for the professionals that are servicing when they come in, say the occupational therapist, so that we know that we are getting the service?
I honestly don't know if there's a sign-in sheet.
I see, I see the bill, but do we know that they're actually,
They should have to sign in just like I would. If I had to sign in, if I go in that building, I have to sign by Noreen, so their
In
name should be
in
on.
most cases, those services are built into an IEP, so there are other layers of oversight, but if you're asking specifically for a sign-in sheet, I honestly don't know.
say like when the nurse comes in, I would like to know that we are getting our hours.
Okay.
And a sign-in sheet.
Oh, you know what I was gonna ask you, on the new one, is what about the PEs? You have money in it for that, for 750? Is that something that the school always did? Offer the PEs,
The PEs.
the physicals?
Oh, the physical exams?
Yeah.
Okay. I have been told that is historical. And we, in the past, have provided that service to parents. We were unable to offer that last year. I would like to see that stay in the budget personally, just because with our levels of poverty in this community, if we have a parent with a need, it would be nice to be able to help them out. But that's what that is for.
The medical center still do that, I think.
I don't think they were able to,
Not this past year.
no. I know they lost one or two,
Right.
They
providers.
had a nurse practitioner, I believe, at DRB, so they don't have the personnel to do it.
Where was the nurse practitioner looking at on it?
I'm assuming it must have been back.
Well, now we come to the smallest budget in the whole, the smallest cost center.
Well, it's a pretty good budget, it's just not moving the salary line.
If we're curious, this system administration is your share of the district cost. In 2010, Lubec signed an interlocal agreement creating the AOS. And in that document, Lubec agreed to that cost sharing formula. So this is your percentage of that particular budget.
What percentage does Lubec pay, and based on what?
I'm going from memory, but it's something in the vicinity of 18 or 19%, and that's based on resident student count.
Are we the highest, or is there anybody higher?
You were the highest, for 17, 18, but not for 18, 19. And the numbers fluctuate a little bit based on enrollment and the size of the district every year.
You're telling me that Lubec pays the AOS costs based on our students?
Resident students, that's what the cost sharing formula says.
Well, I have documentation here that I pulled out in 2010 when the AOS was formed. It was based on the population in the town.
That's voting power.
Okay.
That's why Lubec has 2 representatives on the AOS board, because by population, Lubec and Eastport are the 2 largest towns.
Yes, but now that you say that, Mike had asked for, at the last school board meeting, 1 person to serve on the AOS and an alternate, and it's not an alternate. And I said there are 2 votes that we get each time.
Right, and I believe that Mike said the chair is welcome to come to any meeting, and for clarification, I can just as easily put it on the agenda again, and we can vote. I'm fine with that, but you are correct.
We did go, like Stephanie and I went for our 2
I'm just
votes.
saying, I didn't
Yeah.
quite understand, and I know Mike and I discussed it, and I pulled out my AOS stuff.
I know it's probably a wording thing, that was it.
That's okay.
So it's basically, Lubec has 2 votes,
Right.
and we try to have at least 2 people at each meeting. And if
That's
one
important.
person can't make it, then, they notify the board chair.
Right,
And at that
and
point,
then
there, I
they can
can
go.
step in and,
Okay, so then you're considered hypothetically the alternate, or you can get somebody else to go.
or we can get someone else to.
I just wanted to clarify that, because I
Well,
didn't hear that at the last meeting.
we may want to clarify that at the next meeting, just list who is going to be the AOS alternate. We can do that. at the next meeting.
No, I would trust Mike to say he'll go, or he'll find somebody that would go.
I have a question on the AOS technology. What do you provide for us?
The AOS technology, that's,
We're looking at it. That's part of it, right there.
That's a business office.
no, the technology line that you see there, remember the software program that I said was built into the district budget?
Oh, so we pay for that extra on top of the business office.
The business office that you see there, that is your share of the salaries of 4 people. Salary and benefits for 4 people.
Who negotiates their increases? Does Lubec get a say in it?
The AOS board does.
AOS board.
And and I know that there was a thing where Wanda and I were very adamant against retaining a person and an increase, and all the other towns were like, let's give them an increase. We would love to give them the top increase. We're going, no. And they say, you're outvoted, pay up, Lubec.
Yeah.
And we said, absolutely not. That's huge, and it was a very heated discussion. Because we pay up, there's nothing to make these employees work for us. They can say, oh, we just don't feel like doing this, or we don't, there's nothing pushing these people to really service Lubec. Once you have the money.
No, that's not true.
Yeah.
No.
One thing I find with them over these past 2 years is that they are competent, and when you ask them something, Stephanie, they're gonna get it for you. That's what I found with them.
I'm not talking about those.
Yeah.
I haven't had any issues with any of that. Anyways, we'll move on.
May I ask, why is the audit budget going up $3,500 for the AOS?
Yep. The last 2 years in a row, our auditor has had to do research on past years, and this is stated in your audit. I actually had your auditor go back 7 years to reconstruct several audits. The net result of that research was we have $176,000 in balance forward. However, that extra time costs money. So you can see here, your audit does indeed show a $3,500 increase, but the auditors essentially found you $176,000. So that's
I
why.
appreciate the explanation, but I guess my other concern is, if they were not our auditor previously, and we paid that auditor, and they never caught any of these mistakes, why can we not go back to that auditor and demand either money back or bring some kind of legal action against them, that this guy can go back?
We looked into it.
Thank you. I knew I could,
It would be almost
Yep.
useless to do it.
except not to use them
And I
again.
mean, many professionals like that, whether auditors, whatever, carry, E&O insurance. I don't even think he carried that. And it was, there was some really sloppy stuff there.
That's okay, thank you.
On the next line, can you explain why the Medicare went from the 4,300 last year to 836 this year? Is that
Medicare.
under the principal's office? Principal Medicare. Is that a typo?
That hasn't been
Yeah.
fixed since we were going over it in the previous budget.
Oh, yeah, there was something
Well,
that,
I believe we checked on that, and I do believe the $800 figure is accurate, but I'll check again.
Yes, because I
So-
don't think it's paid into Medicare, it's paid into the Principals Union or Principals Association, I believe,
MPA?
NPA.
Yeah,
Well,
I
it's
know,
the
but they
43.
wouldn't be getting
State
Medicaid.
retirement,
Right, and that's what I think the issue is.
state retirement.
Right, the principal would pay into the Main State Retirement System. I don't even believe she's eligible to collect Medicare.
Well, Main
We
State
have to
Retirement is
take it out.
there,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think that had to do with where it wasn't SSI that was paid in, but it was
yeah.
paid into the NPA or something like that for some kind of retirement benefit.
Yeah.
Almost like the railroads have, instead of Social Security, so.
but why
I can
would
triple
she
check
have that and the teachers don't?
The teachers don't belong to the NPA, but I can look into that again.
You'll find out why we put in $4,327 last year and we're dropping down to 836.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about copiers. I think at the board meeting you mentioned something about there's some kind of lease overlap according to either the calendar year or the school year.
Yep.
And that's why we've got this $500 or $300 balance or $300 upcharge on what that is. So the copier that the lease has, let's say, expired on or whatever, do we own that machine now? Or do they now take that away and give us a brand new machine with a brand new contract?
You have one that you own, I believe it's in the building. And I do believe there was one that was removed and you have a brand new one. Chad's offered to do a month-to-month comparison that I can bring next time.
Well, my question is, okay, so we own the one that's down in the old principal's office.
Yep.
Which I don't even know why we operate that, because it probably costs more to operate that than the machine is probably worth. So, I mean, toner, whatever, I mean, it costs a lot of money. That machine breaks down, and for the amount of people, say, having access to that machine, you have the cafeteria, and maybe the gym, I mean, it'd probably be more cost, advantage to us to put a regular printer in there. That's something for a board meeting. But, so they take this other machine away, and now they give us a brand new one, and again, we're actually charged whatever it is a month or whatever it is a year for a brand new machine for a period of, I don't know, was it
53 months.
That's what it was, 53 months. It was some kind of weird figure that,
Yeah. It doesn't end on 48.
yeah, and I'm sure it's to the company's advantage to
Oh,
go
yeah.
53 months somehow or other, so. And every year we have to pay, that figure and pay another $800 for maintenance? Or is that on an old copy?
Yeah, I'd have to look. You do have a maintenance contract. Some things are included, some things aren't. But I've made a note to myself here to get more details from Chad.
I mean, because if we're spending $800 a year to maintain that old copier in the principal's office, I could buy 10 printers a year, 10 HP printers and ink for that $800.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something we need to look at and maybe, kind of whittle down and maybe discuss at a board meeting to do something like that. And,
What I can do is I can rule Rick and Chad and did a lot of the research for me, and I can bring a breakdown to the next board meeting.
I mean, in the copier company that's leasing it to us, are we a captive audience? Are they the only copier company around who does this? I know there is a gentleman in town that lives in Lubec that actually services those machines. And that's his job.
We researched, I want to say 3 different options, because the lease is with the district. because we can all get a better rate by pooling that many machines.
Wow, we got that?
Oh, boy, we got that one
Wow.
together.
We
We
got
can't do
that,
anything else, but we can do copiers.
we got that one.
Nice.
So, yeah, but I mean, every town had to sign, you know, their contract, which has been done, but we got a district rate, basically. And yeah, I can get a rate down there.
Do we know what the bids came in at? Did we take the lowest? Because I have no information on this whatsoever.
We did. because-
Okay, do we know what the town pays?
Yes.
And are they higher or lower?
Oh, the town, I thought you meant us compared to, I honestly don't know what the town of Lubec pays compared to us. It wouldn't be,
Yeah, where's Renee?
it wouldn't be, I don't know if it would be an apples to apples comparison based on the number of machines and the sheer usage, because all of your copier contracts have like a per page cost, a color page cost, and if you go over the ratio, it's extra money if you go over the total number, so.
But what is the town budget? And I know that's just one copier. I think they only have one copier.
I can have Chad do what they.
I mean, and again, it goes back to, you know,
She's coming.
we talk
Oh,
about
okay.
sharing things
Right.
and having breakdown on things and getting better deals.
Mhm.
It can work out well. Does it work out the copier thing? Oh, we get a group deal on the copier. Are we really getting the best deal? I don't even make a sweat now.
That's okay, oh, nice.
All right.
It's getting warm, that's all right.
We have a copier question, but what is in the town budget for copiers? Maybe you just have
We
one.
have a contract, a lease agreement.
Yep.
One-
Okay.
yeah.
Is there just one copier?
Yes.
Okay. All right, in the meantime, is there anything else on this one?
Okay, under the principal's office, we have, again, we have technology stuff, we have technology repairs and maintenance. Is that anything, everything that's in the principal's office, or is that everything that's in the secretary's office, or both?
Both.
Okay. Technology-rated supplies and so on like that. Again, that goes back to, is that in both offices? Is that for a whole realm? So, you know, the secretary's computer breaks in the office and
Yep.
her printer breaks in her office or whatever, so.
Right.
Dues and fees and,
I have a question on the telephone,
I do too.
because every warrant I'm seeing, the phone bills, and we get charged per minute to call Eastport. We have long distance charges, page after page after page of long distance charges, and of course they're gonna need to call Eastport. Have we researched a plan so that, you know, is there a cell phone? Is there, I know, these are landlines, but isn't there like $20 a month for unlimited? Why are we still being charged per minute to call Eastport? Have any plans been researched to try to lower that? Because page after page, it's old school.
I'm going from memory. I want to say there was some research that got reported on, something about the way the lines connect on one, but I better not speculate too far. I can follow up. Something sticks in my mind. but-
Yeah, I would like information on how to save money on the
You
phone.
can call from here to the island and not be charged a full call.
Yeah.
And that's in Canada, so.
Yeah,
Or you can call and charge and not get charged.
we're charged.
I can,
Is her phone a single, like she calls with no buttons on it?
that's much better, thank you.
You're welcome, I just saw you fanning yourself.
How come it's the telephone is in her budget and it wasn't in there last year, now this year it's in the maintenance? How come it's been changed from one cost center to the other? Like, I don't see it in her.
I'm on page 5. under-
Telephone is in hers in the last cost center grouping towards the bottom of the page, it's the third item down.
Mr. Johnson, if her phone is a single use, in other words, she's not like Maureen where she has this box with all these buttons on it,
Yep.
do you know if it is or it isn't?
She's got one on her desk that is like Noreen's. She does have a cell phone. If her cell phone is like mine, you're limited as to how far you can call. Like I can't make a long distance toll call. I can dial 1-800 on this, but when I go from my office to Callis, I'm dropped in Robinson because it thinks I'm in Canada and it won't let me make an international call.
The reason that I'm asking is I had suggested it to the town, and they did take me up on it and got it down, I think, at the recycling. US Cellular has a landline for $25 a month. And if she has a landline, needs a landline, and it doesn't need all the fancy buttons, that would cut that way down. I have it, Bunky and Paula have it, I know you have it, and they have it now down at
Public
there.
Works Garage has it too.
It's $25 a month. With the taxes, it comes to $27 and change. It never goes above that, and I can call anywhere in the country, and I do.
Ours is 19.
You may have done
Yeah, I
this.
think we looked at that, and there was something had to do with security on that system, where we had to actually have copper wire into the
I didn't hear you, Mike.
We have to actually have hardwire into the building for a school phone,
I plug mine into a jack.
not the same.
Okay.
It's gonna be connected to the pole outside.
Renee has the
A
information.
copier, last year, we spent $3,751.66.
How many copies did you make? Okay. Do you pay per copy or so many?
We have a lease agreement for the machine, which is $207, and then we have to pay per copy, which is
Yeah.
why we charge fees to the
If
customer.
the
We
town-
have revenue that comes back in too, because we charge
Right.
for
I mean, if the lease, you're paying that annually. So if you're paying a little over $3,000 on the town side, the school with our usage demands would compare pretty favorably if we were paying $5.
I thought you were talking about the hot one in the high school. Maybe.
Anything else?
Yeah, they got us.
Well, that might be a place you could negotiate next year if we start talking to the town ahead of time and
Who's your contact through?
ACOP.
You use Rico.
do you know who the person is, and I know who the person is in town, do you know what company they work for?
Like a Rico.
I think Rico is who the hospital uses too.
Yeah. There's John
Mhm.
Rico. I think it's red Eastern. It's a red logo. So,
I don't know.
next year.
Thank you, Renee. I had a question.
Thank you, Renee.
You're welcome.
Okay, transportation and buses. Oh, this is hard.
You can see for the group, you can see that we put in a bus payment, $18,000. When I purchased buses for the other towns around the district, we lease purchased those over a 5-year period. A 3-year lease is possible, but your annual payment would go from 18 to 30 on a $90,000 bus. So the other towns that I work with, they're conscious of their budget as well, so a $30,000 line item compared to an $18,000 line item, they like to finance over 5. Conceivably, Lubec could finance over 3 and you get out from under the payment sooner, maybe save a little interest, but you have a $30,000 line in your budget instead of an 18. So, just to let you know, a 3-year lease purchase arrangement is possible. And this cost center would have come in flat if not for adding that bus payment, and that is for one bus, by the way, 18,000, that's for one bus, one full-size bus, I should say.
What's the age of our newest bus? We just got one a couple of years ago,
2014.
so it's 4
So
years
the
old.
2 units that are out there now are 4 years old. The ones that have been condemned were 2004s. So life expectancy, well, probably a little bit longer now because they're doing a little different things and so on like that as far as undercoating and stuff like that, so. We're probably looking at maybe 10 to 12 years per bus.
I know at the last school board meeting, Michael, that this was brought up, and the superintendent said that he had already gone ahead and applied, I thought, to the state
Yep.
to see if we can get a bus, and they do have, because we have extenuating circumstances, we don't have a high school, and we have to bus our kids so far, they're not gonna last anywhere. And I encourage the school board, like I said the last time, to seriously think of who uses our buses in the summer. That's when they should be being fixed, repaired, not making bus trips for other areas that are paying us nothing for the bus. And then,
That is being addressed.
I'm just saying, and again, Michael, thank you. Marilyn wasn't at that meeting, and I wanted her to hear me say it.
And it's fairly straightforward, $18,000 a bus payment and interest and so on like that, I mean, $750, so. And that is for one bus.
One bus, one full-size bus.
Are you still gonna look at getting a smaller used bus, or no?
Don't know yet.
Okay, thank you.
You know, I've been on the phone with some people, and I'm sure Ken has been on the phone with some people.
Esport's got a 35-passenger bus, little short bus with gasoline engine. They got that new in February of 2016, and it was a $60,000 unit. So they're paying, their annual payment's like 12 grand for 5 years. It's handy to buzz around town and the citizens.
The nice thing with the gasoline unit, it's based on, it's a Ford V10.
Well, that thing runs like a top. They didn't have an issue.
5-year powertrain warranty on the unit, which is like, yeah.
I know you said, and also as opposed to having it being diesel with the repairs, it kills us on the diesel.
Depends on what mechanic you talk to.
Yeah.
Do we work with any of the gas stations to get a contract with our gasoline, or no?
We put it out to bid.
We did put it out. Have we heard anything, or not yet?
I don't, well, let me take that back. We put out a big list for AOS. And I don't think the bid deadlines come in, but I think I'll have that for the next board meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions on facilities maintenance here?
The big change is that I removed the $35,000 boiler payment, and that resulted in a cost savings because we also were able to remove the aquaculture demolition from the line, from the cost center, because that project has been completed. So if you're looking at the
budget.
Excuse me?
Under budget, so.
Yeah, we did well on that project. So if you're looking here, you can see your standard line, salary and benefits for your custodian, contracted services under water, sewer, snow removal, trash, so on, building maintenance lines. Pretty self-explanatory. And this cost center compared to the previous year is down $18,720.15.
How come the snow plowing isn't under contracted services?
I suppose it could be, because once we accept a bid from somebody, we actually, you in essence sign a contract, we accept that price, but, I mean, it's just a question of how we organize that.
What's your contracted services then? Why did you reduce it? What are those?
Because that contracted services, Stephanie, was reorganized. It was cut from 20 to 8, but where Wander was talking about where it says snow plowing, sanding, we went from 0 to 7,500, so those two lines have been separated.
What are we considering contracted services? Well, let's put it this way here, what did we pay $20,000 for on contracted services last year? What did that include?
I believe when I look at this, it included your snow plowing and sanding, which we've separated out.
That only comes to 15,000.
Right, and there were some other items that were separated from that number for more specificity, and I'll have to get a reminder from my staff as to what was broken out.
Yeah, so they're not listed on here.
Right.
contracted services, and
What's the HVAC system?
that figure you're seeing in the budget there, that has to do with the new boiler purchase. And what has to happen before we can actually put that out to bid, that unit that system has to be designed. So we have to have a company design that system, okay, be specific on what we want it to do as an end result, and then put it out to bid, because it's going to be very specific as far as, you know, what the capabilities are of it, not specific to the point of what brand, but it has to be what type of boiler, what the capabilities are, what it's going to do, what the end result is. And that, to design that is about $15,000. It'll probably come in a little under that. So, and that's a figure that I got from two companies, what it will cost to design that out.
I have a question on that, Mike. When you got this new system, new boiler, is it expected that it will reduce the fuel consumption? Will it be more efficient?
Don't know, because it's going to be a different type of boiler. It's replacing a steam boiler. I want to say it's probably more efficient than the 35 or 40-year boiler it's in now. As far as, you know, cost goes. I mean, originally we were looking at maybe getting a condensing gas boiler. We're talking to the engineers about it. It would be better to go back to a standard cast iron boiler for efficiency and longevity down the road. So, want to get maybe another 30, maybe 40 years out of the boiler.
So a few years back, there was an energy audit done, I believe, and the biggest heat loss was in the gym. Has that been addressed?
It has not been addressed to the point of the energy audit, because it really, the biggest heat loss that we had in the gym was through the ceiling. And the problem with that is the way the ceiling is structured in there. We were really hesitant on putting any kind of insulation material on there, because if something happened down the road, we had, let's say, water infiltrate that insulation. We weren't really sure if that ceiling would actually hold a load and not collapse. So, any type of a building like that, an open building, Eastport's Field House, the same thing, any kind of gym is going to be, you know, just a heat is just going to blow right out any way it can. And the building itself, is the way it's designed. It's 19, when was that put in? 1960s, that building, Tony?
At least.
Wanda?
Which one?
Maybe before that.
The gym.
The gym
Oh,
was put in the
I
seventies.
thought they had the roof, where they had
No, but
talked
not the
about-
gym is older than that.
Yeah, the gym is
Gym's
older
been
than
there
that.
a
The
long
gym is,
Oh, you're talking, I thought you were talking about the high school
the
wing.
gym, I think, is probably back into the early 60s.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Is there any way to put a return so that the heat that gets up there can be filtered back down in?
that's going to be part of the engineering. So,
Some schools have, dropped their, how they put those ceilings in.
we looked at a bunch of things, and I think it was before Mr. Johnson was here. We looked at insulating that, and just putting insulation up there. Just the cost of the insulation was like $18,000. That didn't include the install
Yeah.
or any kind of strengthening that needed to be done. So, I haven't been up there, but
I think it
when
did
you get up
have
there and
some
you look
form
down,
of
you can see everything. It's kind of
insulation.
scary.
It wasn't completely without insulation, it does have some form of insulation.
Yeah.
At that time, 3 or 4 years ago, I talked to somebody that, I think it was Cecil,
I was just
somebody,
gonna ask,
and they said it was insulated.
it was when they redid the lights and then they had the lights redone again.
Right.
And I'm encouraging you, if you want, to talk to Cecil, because there was a reason why a lot of insulation could not be put up there. Kind of what you're talking about, condensation, and that's gonna create a mold problem
Yes.
for you.
Yeah.
So they didn't put
Yeah,
more
a lot of it
insulation
had to
up
They
do
there.
don't want a lot of
the
weight up
actual
there the
structure of
way
the
it's
Yeah.
made.
The structure and what was actually holding the ceiling up. I mean, it's fine like it is. Once you put anything into it,
Right.
it could cause an issue. So I think that's why everything was tabled, because we did have the money set aside for that. It was like $18,000 in materials, and to find a contractor to do it. And we decided not to do it because it was.
But we was told there was no insulation. It is insulated to a certain point, what they did when they built it.
Okay, so that was the reason why.
Can I ask him just one question now? On the non-appropriated, which it isn't in this new budget, Mr. Johnson, but the non-appropriated revenues,
Yep.
now who has access to those? Like if you were going to expend any of the monies, who gives that authority?
The board does. Non-appropriated revenue, specifically the Title I-A money, Title II-A money, the local entitlement money, those are all federal sources. You don't raise them through taxation, so that's why they're called non-appropriated. However, expenditures on those items flow through the warrant process because we have employees that are paid with Title I-A and II money as well as local entitlement money. So they have contracts and salary amounts just like anybody else. The difference is they don't appear in this budget because you're not raising the money. That's federal money. However, the paychecks or whatever still cycle through the warrant process.
So like this one of them, for instance, is the Maui Beach project. The board would be aware of any monies coming out of any of those payments.
Right, exactly. If you're curious, some of those older accounts like that, for example, if we were going to spend money in one of those accounts, we would have to honor the original intent of those accounts. Because one of the questions that come to me, particularly around audit season, somebody will see a list of all these grant sources or unexpended revenue from 25 years ago in some cases and say, well, why don't you spend it? And I have to say, I would have to follow what the original intent is. So, that's what.
May I ask a question? I don't know when they got away from it, but has this, when you look at the figures that the school is spending for contracted services and repairs on building repairs and maintenance, would it not be possible to look at hiring a maintenance person, someone that has the ability? We're calling people in every time something needs to be fixed, as opposed to having somebody right, and we did have it one time, have somebody right there, that when the pipe broke or this happened or something else, they fixed it.
I mean, you could do that. You'd be adding a position to the budget. That position would have to be supported with benefits. The other thing I would say is working for a school, the person would have to have the appropriate licensure. We do our maintenance with Eastern Plumbing and Heating on the HVAC system because they can send a licensed plumber to us. I mean, it could happen, but we would have to make sure that
Well, you've got $23,000 for building repairs and maintenance right there, and then you've got heating repairs, that's another 12, so you're up to $35,000 right there just for those two things. And if you had somebody that had that capability,
Yep.
and then contracted services, I don't know.
And that person would just be salary, then we'd be talking equipment and parts and tools.
They'd have to have their own tools.
But they
The
would
school
need,
didn't have tools when this other person was down there. Go ahead, I'm
they would
sorry.
be needed full-time. There would be enough really to support full-time, but,
Non-call person.
well, no, I'm thinking, well, if we could pay them for, that is their main job, but they also drive the bus. Wouldn't that be, but they get paid.
We've been running that ad for 2 years, though.
That's janitor. This would be a much higher pay because they would have to be licensed and everything, but we don't have enough to really support that. But if you add in with the driver's salary, that would bring that together and it would even out.
I had somebody ask me after the last school board meeting about that bus driver custodian job, and they said it was so unclear to them because they thought somebody that they knew was going to. I was like, I don't.
They ask, I mean, that's the thing,
I'm going to go back to the next one.
And we're getting desperate for drivers.
Anything else on facilities, maintenance, any questions?
I don't know if we've asked this, do the teachers or the employees, do they do inventory on their supplies? Like with maintenance or custodial, do they do, or the teachers in their room, do they have an inventory sheet that they?
I know that some do, and some don't. I would suspect that most don't have a specific inventory. When I was teaching, I always thought it was a handy thing, but it would be as whatever the individual teacher wanted to do.
Or like custodial, do they have an inventory list where, you know, if they remove, the wax, they've gotta write, you know, check things on?
They would be, I would expect custodial to have an equipment inventory, like lawnmower, weed trimmer, hard hat, goggles, ear protection because of OSHA requirements. But if you're talking about cleaning fluid, toilet paper, paper towels, I would suspect not.
Any questions on food service or anything like that? I think it's-
The changes here, just so the group knows, my crew broke out the position of food service manager and assistant cook into two separate things instead of one thing, so that's why it looks different there. But the total amount of that particular cost center is up $3,100.
Didn't you buy a refrigerator? Wasn't that the big cost on that?
I thought that was 2 years ago.
Oh,
And then the soup thing was last
Something,
year,
yeah,
last
okay.
year, after the boiler got condemned, so.
And contingency stayed the same, so on this page, it's just your lunch program and contingency.
So contingency and undesignated,
Yep.
explain the two.
Okay. Contingency in your budget, what's budgeted here, this is part of the overall budget. However, in the case of contingency, I can't spend contingency without board action. I believe we had to do this past spring. If we are going to overexpend a cost center, I can do one of two things. I can ask the board to move 5 or 10%, with 10%. Move 10% from one cost center to another because we have money available in regular ed, but not in facilities maintenance, or I can activate contingency. Contingency requires board approval. Undesignated fund balance, to highlight the difference, is a calculation that's made by your auditor, and that one is being used strictly as tax relief. But the undesignated fund balance is not part of your budget, per se. Contingency is built into your budget. But we are using a portion of your undesignated fund balance as carryover on page 1 to help bring down taxation, but the two are separate.
So we have a portion that's being used
Yep.
to bring down
Taxation is revenue.
taxation.
Right.
Where is the rest of that undesignated fund sit?
Sitting in the account.
It sits in that account right on the same line with the same heading, undesignated, but I'm glad you're thinking ahead because conceivably, I could ask the board, since the board is its own fiscal agent in an SAD, to designate for a bus if it comes to that.
Thank you.
That is a possibility.
Yes.
so like, one big item this past year was like with the legal fees, and so that would have come out of, well, I always say it's a slush fund, but what's it called?
No,
Undesignated.
in the case of your legal fees, we did activate contingency for that purpose, and that is within the budget. So we didn't activate general fund carryover to offset legal fees. So does the group, just to back up to my point I made earlier, does the group want to direct me, if you look at page 1, do we have a sense of what this board would like, or what this group would like me to do? Because, as I indicated, I'm only using $78,854 and 28 cents in balance forward to come in with a budget at flat taxation. So I see a couple of possibilities here. I can increase the use of fund balance forward as it is and pass on savings to the taxpayer with a bus payment built in. Conceivably, the board could designate an amount of money in the undesignated general fund to purchase a bus. I could take the bus payment out. But I would not necessarily be able to pass on tax savings to the town because there wouldn't be enough money to go around. See what I'm getting at?
Would that be a question for the whole board?
Yeah, that would be a question for the board.
It would be.
The simple reason is that's why I asked you
Sure.
where that money lived.
Yep.
okay? Because, you know, we found ourselves in a situation where we thought we were gonna have one more year with at least one of the older buses.
Right.
It's not the case.
Right.
Given the cost of what a bus costs, whether it's a big bus or a small bus or a used bus or whatever.
Right.
And I would think that was something that we would.
Yeah.
Myself, I feel like where we are with being flat on the budget is a good place. I'm glad we get some of these other questions answered, and maybe we can get some adjustments made onto the budget that we can actually present before the next board meeting. I mean, before the next board meeting, I don't mean the day before, I mean, a couple of days before, get it out to the people who are gonna look at it, so they can sit down and digest it. Okay. Because we have 3 new board members. Right. That maybe need a tutorial on how this whole operation works. And then maybe even one more look-see with the budget committee before we get into that meeting. To see if that, you know, this is what we're comfortable with. And I think the big thing we really need to get is the clarity of it. And now that we understand that this is all based on what the state kicks back to us in subsidies and stuff, makes sense. Wish it could be a hell of a lot clearer, but maybe if we could increase the font a little bit though.
I'm gonna make a motion that there has to be some rules, because I'm not gonna ask for the font to be increased 5 times over, and it's still this small. So, that's one of the things I would like, there's gotta be some rules on
Well,
this.
one thing I wish that the board would, the school board would do this year, which these boards know that they always did, is start that budget like in January and start
Yep.
getting
There'll
on
be
it.
another
Yep.
agenda item
Yeah.
for the board.
Yep.
And that all has to do with, you know, we can start some stuff,
Yeah.
but we don't know what the current or the next year's state funding is until
Tell you.
specific dates.
Yeah, but that's a little thing to add in. The
Right.
major work is what we just, or
Right.
what we're doing, and that can start in January. And then if there is some tweaking that needs, we don't, at least we have the majority of it done, so we can have something passed, and we know what's in there, we aren't just passing anything.
But the new board members also, Stephanie, would understand it. Like Mike said, you've got 3 new people, haven't got a clue.
That's why we're
What is going on.
videotaping it today, and so that they can go on, because we discussed that in the meeting, so that, they can, hopefully, they will review this and have actually been a part of this.
Could I just mention one thing? Mr. Johnson had mentioned at the school board meeting that another town needed a school bus, went ahead and bought it, and then they were on a list, and they purchased it, so they lost out on the funding. It didn't come to them.
That was
So
good.
we're playing a catch-22. Do you take the money out of there, or do you sit and wait and see where you are?
See,
And
in
you ha-
Perry's case, they purchased a used bus, and subsidy can't be used for a used bus.
Okay, so then the question is, if they turned around and went and decided to buy a new one because we're desperate,
Yep.
would the state give us money if our number came up in the draw? Would they give you the money towards paying that bus?
If our number came up, and literally, the requests are prioritized, and however many people in front of us, we either have to cut it from the budget or whatever for it to trickle down. But the state ranks that, and
Well, if I
I can't
recall.
guarantee it.
No, I understand that, but I also recall you saying Lubec is in a position where we don't have a high school, we're not running kids in town, we're running kids 62 miles a day
Yep.
just to get to high school. That should rank us up there a little bit higher than somebody who's got a high school in the same town that they're in.
I'm trying.
I know,
Well,
I
we
just
used to
wanted
be
to
under
clarify.
And the other thing is, these buses don't physically exist in the state right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they're elsewhere, they could be built to order. I mean, they don't have these sitting on a parking lot somewhere down in Augusta, and that's the problem. New ones anyways.
Save some money. I know.
I've seen-
We just want everything.
One of the worst things that happened is that I stapled it in the wrong corner one night, and I had